This podcast may contain graphic and potentially upsetting content related to true crime and the paranormal. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, I'm Corinna Harrod and this is the Monday Night Review. Hello and welcome to episode 156, I believe, of the Monday Night Review. I hope you are well. Thank you for your feedback on last week's episode. I'm glad you all enjoyed it. Very weirdly, the town of Conway is now suffering from a water crisis but there was a burst water main. So everything was closed. Schools were closed. We probably wouldn't have been able to stay in the lovely Castle Hotel that we stayed in had we gone 1 week later. So I find that kind of thing a little bit weird. As you know, I am a very late adopter to a lot of things. And one of the things I refused to read for absolute years was Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, partly because I worked for the publishers when it was published and there was a big fuss made about it, understandably. But if you are an idiot like me, that immediately puts you off. And then I just thought, I'm just not that into historical fiction. I'm either into fiction or I'm into history. I don't like it when the two blend. But my mother said that the audiobook was excellent and I should give it a go. And I did, and I thought that, this year I really want to read more. I read a lot of murder books and true crime books, but I just wanted to read as much as possible. And I thought, why don't I give this audiobook a go? Because it'll take me about a year to read with the amount of reading time I have, leisure reading time. And I was absolutely hooked. It is really long, and it is the first in a series of 3, and I believe they just get longer. But it was absolutely incredible. Really well written, obviously, but I mean unusual, and appealed to me even though I'm not a historical fiction gal. Really well read. So if you like an audiobook, give it a go. If you've tried to read it and couldn't get into it, then give it a go, because there's something about the way he reads it. It's very appealing. I have a lot of time working outside, so I can have a good listen. So it really fitted with my start of the year, but I feel quite bereft. I did sort of had to just be like, I can't do anything until I get this done and dusted and listened to. So I'm very behind on my podcast listening. But that's a real recommendation. I'm also feeling bereft because, again, as a late adopter, I finished the first series of Rivals last night. So I don't know how much. I mean, I think it is very niche British phenomenon, Jilly Cooper. I absolutely bloody love her. Have loved her since I was a young teen. Just bloody brilliant. I was in South Africa and I'd run out of stuff to read, and I went to stay with this woman and she said, "Have you read any Jilly Cooper?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Oh, brace yourselves." And I believe I have a feeling she gave me a Passionata, which is one of the later Rutshire Chronicle ones. I could be getting this completely wrong, but I have a feeling that's the one she gave me. And it sparked a lifelong devotion to Jilly. And so when Rivals was announced, I'm very lucky to know the woman who wrote the screen adaptation. So I've known it's been coming. We've talked about it at parties. And then when it came out and Rupert wasn't how I imagined he should look, I was like, I just don't think I can do it. I just don't think I can do it. And then everyone was telling me how great it was, and that made me even less likely to watch it. And then I just did it. And my God, we finished last night and I'm bereft. I still don't think Rupert is cast right. I get why he's cast. I totally get why he's cast. But it doesn't work for me. But the costumes and the makeup and the setting and the screen, I mean, it's beautifully adapted from the book, and I'm so fussy about that sort of thing. And it is just what I needed, actually. So I'm quite pleased that I left it this long. Just what I needed. Nice January escapism. and I bloody loved it. And I mean, it's basically porn in some of it. So my sister, big shout out to my sister, who watched at least 3 episodes with my mother and my aunt, who's in her 80s. And I mean, it's proper gritty sex. Do you know what I mean? I believe they did an adaptation of Riders, another Gilly Cooper book, in the 90s, and it was more sort of soft focus. This is very much not soft focus, but I bloody love it. I really enjoyed it. So if you want some January escapism and you haven't already, then watch Rivals. If you haven't bloody read Rivals, any time of crisis, I read a Gilly Cooper. If I'm feeling depressed, Gilly Cooper. When my dad died, Gilly Cooper. In labour, Gilly Cooper. Honestly, night before my wedding, Gilly Cooper. Like, she creates this incredible world. So there we are, from historical fiction to just bawdy fiction. Those are my 2 things that have been keeping me going in the world's longest January. And today I'm easing you in. I don't like to be too true crime heavy. True crime is the thing that I do really like. And weirdly, this came up. I have a huge list of everyone's recommendations, and this came up as a suggestion on my Notion calendar when it's like, why don't you do this? And it kind of fits with the whole Wolf Hall thing. So today we're going to do an urban legend. I haven't done an urban legend for ages. We are going to do the urban legend of Bloody Mary, which is a popular folklore tale that's been passed down for generations. It's often a party or sleepover ritual. The legend typically involves summoning the spirit of a woman named Bloody Mary by chanting her name 3 times or more, some say 7, depending on your variation, while standing in front of a mirror in a dimly lit or candlelit room. Now, I have never done this, and there's a couple of reasons why I've never done this. I have very low boredom threshold. This kind of thing doesn't float my boat. I can't neurodivergently can't see the point of doing it, because I think if something happened, we'd know about it. Anyway, call me a fun sponge. Lots of people I know have done it. Sometimes Bloody Mary will be dripping with blood. Sometimes she's holding a dead baby. Sometimes she foretells the death of the person who summoned her. And there are varying accounts of who Bloody Mary actually is, though it's most commonly thought to be Mary I, the only surviving child of Henry VIII and his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Go listen to Wolf Hall. All about Henry VIII. So, Mary I was born on the 18th of February 1516. She grew up knowing that she was a disappointment to her parents, who longed for a son and heir. And in fact, the fact that she wasn't basically led to the downfall of her mother, who was divorced against her will and against that of her religion, so that Mary's father, Henry, could marry Anne Boleyn and hopefully get an heir, which he didn't. Before his second marriage, Mary was the nation's beloved princess. Afterwards, she was declared illegitimate, separated from her mother, who didn't accept the divorce as a legal thing, and remaining staunch in her Catholic faith. She was sort of passed off as Lady Mary, and it was only after her mother's death and faced with imprisonment that she acknowledged her father as head of the Church of England. After Anne Boleyn was executed and Mary's stepsister Elizabeth, the future Elizabeth I, was also stripped of her legitimacy and titles, Mary was returned to the royal fold, where she endured 4 more stepmothers and different siblings. In 1547, when Henry died, his son, with Jane Seymour, wife number 3, took the throne at the age of 9. So we've got a 9-year-old on the throne. Though staunchly Protestant and continually threatening his sister for receiving mass, he died in July 1553 when he was only 15. So all that fuss for a male heir, and he has his male heir who only manages to reign for 6 years. And then it gets very confusing historically. In Henry VIII's will, if his son Edward were to die childless, the throne would go to his eldest sister Mary. Edward, however, believed that a Protestant successor would be more fitting, and so he names his cousin, Lady Jane Grey, who you may have heard of, you may not. She would go down in history as the shortest reigning monarch, lasting only 9 days as queen before she was deposed, tried and executed. I always feel so sorry for Lady Jane Grey. At a time where women were nothing more than pawns, mothers and skivvies, she was badly used by the men in her life and paid the price for it. In August 1553, Mary rode into London at the head of an army with loyal supporters, including 500 nobles and her sister Elizabeth. Not unlike the backwards and forwardsing we are seeing in American politics at the moment, Mary set about reinstating Catholicism as soon as possible, marrying Philip II of Spain in Winchester Cathedral, down the road from my house, in July 1554. She released Thomas Howard and Archbishop Stephen Gardiner from the Tower, where they'd been imprisoned by her father, and invoked a law where Protestants who refused to accept Mary's reforms could either be burned at the stake, and it's from this law that she gets her famous nickname Bloody Mary. So it seems most likely that she thought this law is going to be a deterrent, and people who, don't accept the Catholic Reformation will see a few people burned and then will panic and rethink their decision. It wasn't, and they didn't. People turned on the Queen and the burnings intensified. She basically couldn't go back on her word and didn't expect people to rise up against in such a way. So it's thought that between 1555 and 1558, around 300 Protestant men and women were burned at the stake. It wasn't all just a backfired plan, though. She was fairly ruthless. Thomas Cranmer, a bishop who Mary believed to be responsible for the divorce of her parents, was threatened with burning and did recant his actions and belief, and this should have saved him from execution legally. But Mary said that he was to be burnt anyway, so he recanted his recanting and refused, quote, the Pope as Christ's enemy and Antichrist with all his false doctrine. In her personal life, Mary was much like her father, wanted to have children to secure an heir to the throne. She was 38 when she became queen, which was thought to be incredibly old to be having children. And although she was pregnant within 2 months of her marriage, was she? She bloomed. Her dresses no longer fitted her. In April, she was taken to her chambers where she would give birth in May. As was the tradition, you were taken off and tended to until the baby arrived, and everyone waited for news, and no news came. No news came in June, and in July, it seemed that only Mary really believed she was pregnant at all. Now, we know now that she must have been suffering from a phantom pregnancy, and after 11 months, she emerged humiliated. Not only was this an awful situation at the time, it was considered dangerous to have sex during pregnancy. So she'd wasted valuable procreation time. After another phantom pregnancy, Mary died in 1558, and many believed that these false pregnancies were punishment for her Catholicism and tyranny on her Protestant subjects. So the nickname Bloody Mary was already in use in the mid-16th century, where she was kind of used as a boogeyman to instill fear in people. Writer Bartholomew Traran wrote, quote, "She swimmeth in the holy blood of the most innocent, virtuous and excellent personages." It was not long after her death, her legacy as Bloody Mary, the Catholic tyrant, was cemented in English folklore. It could be said that views of Mary's reign is seen through a very sexist outlook. Historian Lucy Wooding notes misogynistic undertones in descriptions of Mary. Quote, "She's simultaneously being lambasted for being vindictive and fierce and spineless and weak, criticised for such actions as showing clemency to political prisoners and yielding authority to her husband. In a man, I should note, being fierce is respected and showing clemency is to be commended. Mary really is a monarch where you can see criticisms levelled at her that just wouldn't happen if she were a man. Now, the first reference to the legend of Bloody Mary in the Mirror isn't found until around the 19th century. I've always found it very strange that it's equally prevalent in the UK and America, though across the Atlantic it seems to have been adopted and then transferred to Mary Worth. So Mary Worth's believed to be a witch. There's no historical proof that shows Mary Worth to actually exist. Hate to burst that bubble. But perhaps the name was made to fit the mirror game because historically it doesn't fit with the USA, whereas a wood-dwelling witch is universal. And so you can imagine someone hears this name and it kind of fits better than this random English queen. The story goes that when children disappeared from neighbouring villages, the woods were searched, and every time Mary Worth was spoken to, she appeared more youthful. And the idea was that she was eating or doing something with these children that were giving her the eternal youth. Think Mother Gothel in Tangled. She's eventually shot and then burnt at the stake, which is lovely. And she, of course, curses her killers, and that curse is manifested in this mirror game. So that's one of the stories behind the Bloody Mary mirror urban legend in the US. Basically, I think the Bloody Mary thing travelled over to America historically with the Mary the First idea. And because in America the past Queen of England doesn't really work, they've made up their own background. And mirrors have long been thought to hold souls or be portals to an afterlife. There are so many references that you can think of. I mean, what about Galadriel in Lord of the Rings with her special mirrory, watery bowl thing? Astronomers at the time of Mary's reign believed that mirrors could make predictions about the future and summon the dead. So it's really not very far-fetched to see how the use of a mirror to summon Bloody Mary started. It's something that a lot of people would have had in their homes at a time where, you know, there's not electricity and things are getting dark, and you've got this sort of, we've all probably walked past a mirror in the twilight or in the dark and forgotten the mirror was there and been given a real shock. They are a kind of weird thing sometimes. So the idea that Mary Worth was stealing these children is why sometimes she's seen holding a baby. Obviously in the UK, sometimes she's seen holding a baby because Mary failed to have children. Psychologists argue that if you look into a mirror for a long amount of time, things can become distorted and facial features can move. So basically you start to hallucinate, and this could cause a strange face to appear. Giovanni Caputo of the University of Urbino calls this the strange face illusion, where the brain facial recognition fails and fades some bits out or makes some bits move. Some believe that the vision of Bloody Mary or any faces in the mirror not belonging to someone in the room is the Troxler effect, an optical illusion affecting visual perception. Basically, when the brain is overstimulated, it tunes out certain things and fills in the gaps, which is, again, why you have, I believe, when you think you've seen someone that you know. I used to think I'd seen my father-in-law who'd been dead for many years. And I'm sure it's because you see certain aspects of that person and your brain fills in the gaps because that's what it knows. So the legend of Bloody Mary has become the inspiration for numerous films, including the 2005 film Urban Legend Bloody Mary, 2007's Dead Mary, and 2008's The Legend of Bloody Mary. But it seems like it really is universal. It doesn't matter who Mary is. Obviously, I think it's Bloody Mary. And for years, actually, I've always been like, why do Americans have Bloody Mary? They can't be interested in Mary the First of England. But yeah, there are numerous people who could be the Mary in the USA, but in the UK, I would think that it's Mary the First. Have you tried this urban legend? Ned says he has. I don't know that they have. I don't know that he says he and my middle child have done it. And I said, I don't think that sounds like something I'd let you do. And he said Dad was in charge. So he says they didn't see anything. But, I just, for me, it's not that I'm an unbeliever in everything, but for me, I'm much more like, of course, if you look into a mirror in a state of heightened excitement or scaredness or dim lighting, your brain is going to do stuff. So for me, I haven't done it. I'm not scared of it. I would happily do it now, but I don't see how it can work. So I want to know, because if you go on Reddit, people see stuff. People see stuff all the time. Reddit's got a lot of people having seen various different things on there. So let me know if you've done it. I love to hear from you. So email themondaynightrevue@gmail.com. You can find me on social media at The Monday Night Review. You can join Patreon, where you get extra episodes, ad-free listening. You can chat. There's lots going on. And until next time, be kind, stay safe, and always check the back seat before you drive.